Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Voltron Legendary Defender review. This is going to be my kind of final thoughts on Voltron Legendary Defender Season 2. So I've obviously done my podcast video I put up with myself, Greg and Kelly, where we discussed it in huge detail. And then I also have my videos where I did my initial reactions to groups of episodes as I first watched them. And I just want this to kind of be just kind of me on my own, just not a hugely long video like the podcast, giving my thoughts on the season that I've had time to fully think about how I feel about it. So, overall, Voltron Legendary Defender, Season 2, I like the season. I do. And I don't want people to get me wrong. I have criticisms, big criticisms, with a lot of the plot points that they tried to cover in this season. But I still really like this show overall. I think it's one of the best kind of Western animations out there. I think it's much better than TMNT. I think most of the time it is a better show than Star Wars Rebels in terms of consistency of episodes. And I don't really think there's a lot out there that's really better. In terms of Western animations, I really think only like kind of Korra and Avatar are kind of above it. And that's huge praise for this show. But I do think a lot of it is potential right now. A lot of it is just that this show can be close to Korra and Avatar, but it hasn't quite got there yet, and it could be so much better. And that is the reason that I'm so critical of it. Perhaps I was overly negative in my initial reaction to like the last group of episodes that I reviewed, but I'm more negative on the show than maybe I otherwise necessarily would have been, because I know that this crew that works on this show can do better. I know that this show has the potential to do better, and that's why I think it's definitely needed that this show be criticized for what it is. So let's get into it. The main reason I like Season 2 more than Season 1 is that I feel Season 1 is quite basic. It's the introduction, it doesn't try to do a lot, it's a solid introduction, and so because it's just solid, to the point, it doesn't do a lot wrong because it doesn't try to do a lot that's kind of risky. Season 2 has to kind of follow up on Season 1 and actually commit to doing stuff with the plot setup from Season 1. So straight away it has more to do, bigger things to do, and thus there's more that can go wrong. And so overall it's better because it's dealing with more interesting stuff. That's why I prefer Season 2. But it also has more criticisms about it than Season 1 does, because it tries to do bigger things but falls short of executing them properly. And so that may seem like an odd thing to say, that you have more criticisms about Season 2, yet you like it more than Season 1, which you just said has very little to critique. But that's because with Season 1, there's also not a ton to praise in terms of like, oh, it's just a solid introduction to the show. This time there's actually a lot to talk about, but some of it's negative, some of it's positive. So let's get into this. For me, the biggest missed mark with a plot point was the Keith is Galra plot, and more or less everything that surrounded it. What I liked about the Keith is Galra plot is I liked the setup in the early episodes towards it. Keith revealing his knife and it has the Galra symbol, Keith asking Ulos a question about his blade, and him kind of forming that connection and kind of thinking to himself, what am I? What's my connection to the Galra? If it is something big with me, I have to try and bring up the idea with the group of like, all of the people, all Galrans are not evil. Like that we shouldn't treat them all the same, that just mark the same species with the same brush. That's fine, I appreciate that. The problem is when they come to actually dealing with it in a big way. So 108, The Blade of Marmora, that episode, that 208, I really didn't like this episode. I thought it was one of the most poorly executed attempts to have a big character arc that I've really seen in a TV show. I really, really did not like this episode. And I rarely say that I just, like, really don't like episodes. I have problems with this episode. Big problems with it. One is that the Blades of Marmora are very, very underdeveloped and quite boring as a concept, when it should be really cool. This rebel Galran faction that's been around for a while, trying to do stuff behind the scenes to have hope against Zarkon, and Team Voltron finally comes into contact with them and has a hope against him to win. And what it ends up being is just this really confusing kind of group that talks about like, oh, knowledge or death, and they say all this, speak in these really confusing ways and have these blades that are kind of unexplained, and then none of them are really characters. We meet so many Blades of Marmora, but the only blade that really comes across as interesting is Ulas, and he's killed in pretty much the episode he first appears in. So it's very frustrating. And then the other two characters that we meet, that we get names for, Calivan and Antok, the leader, and then the main kind of one of the normal blades. Antok is killed, and then Calivan and Antok are both not really interesting characters. They're both involved in a cool fight at the end, but what does it say about this show when the entire involvement of the Blades, really, within this season is that two of them are are in the castle when the final battle is taking place. And if the plan had gone correctly, the only involvement that the Blades would have had would be to message Thace, who's in Zarkon's command ship, to tell him when to activate the virus. That's the only reason that the Blades were there. Like, the fact that they now have tons of people on their side didn't matter because it was only Voltron and the castle that was really fighting in the battle. It was only this desperate attack that they had to fight against Haggard that actually forced the Blades into combat. So I think they're hugely underdeveloped, and I have hope that they can be developed in Season 3, but this season, their introduction, I really was not a fan of what they did with these characters. It should have been the coolest concept ever, but it was just, oh, the Blades. Like, to the point where, like, on the podcast, I was the only one who knew the name of the two characters, Calivan and Antok. And Greg and Kelly both enjoyed that plot a little bit more than I did, and they still didn't know the characters, and admittedly that's because I like the detail and kind of look into detail on things. That's kind of my thing, but still, the fact that like very few people know the names of those characters tells a lot, and there's nothing interesting about them either. Then the Keith side of that plot, really, really badly done, because the whole thing here is that we're finally getting a chance to delve into Keith's past. After this great setup, which I just explained, you force him into this situation where he has to either stay and hear his backstory or leave for some reason. And the problem is I don't felt that they gave a good enough reason for him to leave. I don't felt like they gave enough reason for why they weren't going to explain the backstory at this point in time. I don't need his backstory right now. If you had given me a good enough reason for why Keith couldn't get his backstory at this point in time, that would have been fine. But you gave awful reasons. You set up the whole episode with this vague thing of knowledge or death, and then you effectively say at the end that if Keith had stayed to listen to his backstory, he would have died, because the whole reason the Red Lion attacks is because Keith's in danger somehow, and it senses that he's in trouble because of the vision he's having. I really didn't like how they did this. I like the mystery. I'm interested when they finally do commit to telling us what happened here. I want to know, is Keith's mother in fact Galra? Why were the Galra on Earth at some point? That seems to be the interesting thing. Does that explain why Earth is not part of the Galran Empire as we see it, Zarkon's Empire? That's really interesting, but I just don't feel they gave enough good enough reason, gave a good enough choice for Keith to make as to why he didn't want to hear his backstory. I get the whole idea of him accepting that I know who I am now and it's not important who I was before, but you specifically made episode 108 to highlight the fact that Keith's past is important, and then teased it, didn't commit to it, and basically at the end said that it doesn't matter. And that to me is bad writing, because then what do? You go into episode 9 and suddenly everyone off screen for some reason has found out that Keith is in fact Galra. To me, that is the biggest mistake that this show made this season, and it is a baffling mistake, and probably one of the worst writing decisions I've ever seen in a show. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't get why they didn't show us a scene of everyone reacting to Keith being revealed to be Galra or having Galran blood. I'm honestly annoyed that they didn't show that, because Allura being annoyed at Keith and being angry at him for being Galra is such an important plot point. How could you not show the effective origin of that? we don't even know it. Paige doesn't acknowledge that Keith is Galra. Lance doesn't. Shiro is there in the episode with Keith, but we don't really get him reacting to the reveal that Keith has Galran blood. That kind of is just focused on Keith, and we assume Shiro knows, but we get no reaction from him. Karan doesn't seem to have a reaction. Keith himself doesn't even react for the most of the season to the fact that he's Galra. He doesn't really seem changed by it at all. It just becomes a plot point for Allura. And I like the Allura plot of like her really hating Galran people for the betrayal that happened, because that betrayal is big. It led to the death of her father and all of her people effectively being killed, her planet. You understand why she hates Galran people, and that it is an arc that she needs to go on to accept the fact that not all Galran people are like that. It's why I appreciate so much how they did the makeup scene between Keith and Allura. It's why I appreciate Allura in the end going into battle with the two Blades of Marmora, two Galran people, and her trusting them in battle and being affected by the death of Antog when it happened. That is good. That's actually well done. That once she accepts that Keith is someone that she cares about, but he is part Galra, that she can be more open to other Galran allies being part of the team as well. Because I like that scene where she just admits, I've hated for too long. If you die on this mission, I would be extremely upset because you are like family to me. My family is gone. And if I lost any of my new family, that would be just as bad. And she accepts that. And that is a big moment. I didn't see it as romantic at all, that hug scene between Keith and Allura. I just thought it as I was mean to you for the last couple of episodes. I am making up to you now. I do not want you to die on this mission, but I respect you for going on this deadly mission to help part of the plan. So that's that. Next, Shiro, the Shiro and the connection to the Black Lion plot. I really like this. This was really well done. I loved in episode 7, once we got to it, that the way they did this, that basically they visually showed the connection between Zarkon to the Black Line, Shiro to the Black Line, and then the Black Line being there as well. And that they fought basically for control, but in the end what ultimately won Shiro the trust of the Black Line was Shiro saying that no one controls the Black Line. The Black Line is a being of itself. It is not just a piece of machinery to be controlled. That you have to have trust from Paladin to Line as well as Line to Paladin. And Zarkon had lost that, and so him disrespecting the Black Line and not treating it like a proper being, and Shiro treating it right, the Black Line chose Shiro and chose to abandon its connection to Zarkon. That was very well done. And I love the setup of how they gradually revealed that the Black Line is how Zarkon is actually tracking them, and Shiro needing to end their connection. I liked how in the end their connection became so strong that Shiro got the Black Bayard back, and that's what ultimately won the fight in the end. What I didn't like was that I feel like this arc would have been so much better if Zarkon was developed kind of side by side with Shiro, to explain what his connection initially was to the Black Line, why there was any doubt on behalf of the Black Line as to why he would choose one or the other. That's what was missing from this, that Zarkon was nothing as a character this season. And that's where the season, I think, really fell down. That we had our heroes, really fun to interact with all the Paladins on screen in Voltron and stuff like that. But then they're up against a villain who is just obsessed with the Black Line. That's all he's about this season. Every scene is either him getting zapped by magic to locate the Black Line, or screaming about the Black Line, get me closer to the Black Line, I need to get the Black Line. And Hagar, the audience is completely with Hagar. We're like, what is going on with you? Like, why are you so singularly focused on the Black Line? We could take out the princess at this exact moment and basically win the war, have no threat left in the galaxy. But you are choosing to go against the right strategy for the sole purpose of getting the Black Line back. The problem was they never explained why he is so desperate to get the Black Line back. They never explained why he feels such a connection to the Black Line and why he wants it. Outside of just, I'm an evil villain and I want a powerful weapon. The little bit of backstory you get about that Alfor was in fact the one to make the Black Line from a meteorite that landed on Zarkon's home planet, and that I suppose explains why Zarkon had the Black Line in the first place. But here's the thing that's missing with Zarkon. He's a really interesting character because of all the questions about why did he do this, why did he do that. He was the leader of the original Paladins of Voltron. The person who pilots the Black Line pilots Voltron effectively. Alfor, as far as we know, was the pilot of the Red Line based on what this season tells us. So Zarkon was the leader of that. And the reason that Voltron is known across the galaxy is because Zarkon led Voltron in a heroic manner to become legendary across the galaxy. How did this character go from that to being Emperor of the Universe, betraying Altea, performing basically a genocide against the Alteans, making magic a huge part of the Galran Empire, joining up with Hagar, turning her from Altea to his side, and stuff like that? They're all the questions we need to know about Zarkon. The only problem is he's been defeated now. He is in a coma or something like that, and Prince Lothor is being brought in. So to me, that says that, like, unless we somehow get his backstory in the middle of this season while he's unconscious, that backstory is not going to be given to us for a while. And so, to me, that's everything interesting about Zarkon as a character. The rest of him is just that he's a powerful villain and he leads the galaxy, and that's a goal for our heroes to fight. Which was the plot of this season, and it was fine how they executed that they in the end won, and they, in the process, lost Shiro because he's now missing. Like, fine. But develop your villain before you defeat him so there's actually impact when you do defeat him. I'm not saying give us complete sympathy for Zarkon, but explain his actions. Explain why he wanted to take over the universe and all of this sort of stuff. I suppose quickly on the ending with Shiro. I think the ending with Shiro is interesting in terms of, like, how him being missing is going to impact the other Paladins. In that straight away, the Voltron has lost its leader. And no one initially on the team stands out as kind of being the immediate replacement for him as leader of Voltron. I know Shiro himself picks Keith, but I think it's very clear to us and, like, other characters like Lance that Keith isn't ideal to be leader himself, because as Shiro points out, he does have issues that he needs to get over before he can become a proper leader. I think it's going to be interesting to see Lance maybe step up as a character and be like, no, with Shiro gone, I think I should lead Voltron. I may not be as, like, skilled in a military and combat sense as you are, but I'm more cool-headed than you are. You just jump in, you don't communicate, you go off on your own, you're not very communicative, whereas at least I communicate with the group. I may not know the best military tactics, but I can keep the group together and be an effective leader. I think that is the way to go with Lance in the next season to make him more important, because outside of episode 2 and a little bit with, like, oh, I'm a sharpshooter, that's all Lance was used for this season. Equally so, Hunk wasn't really well used, but I can't see Hunk stepping up to try and become the leader of Voltron. Or Pidge. I just don't think they're the sort of characters who are suited to leading. Whereas Lance, even though he initially kind of comes across like he shouldn't be leader, I think he feels he would be a better leader than Keith, in that he's going to point out Keith's flaws, Keith is going to point out Lance's flaws, and they're going to, like, have to accept the fact that probably if the two of them could get along well enough, they could be really good, like, co-leaders, but just the fact that Shiro's missing is actually really interesting from that perspective. My issue with the ending is ultimately that just there is nothing to go on for why Shiro is missing. No hint in the battle about why he's gone or anything like that. It's just he's gone and we know nothing. I don't like it when they do that. At least with the wormhole cliffhanger from season 1, you could come up with an idea about, you knew what happened. Hagar shot the wormhole, it destabilized, they're all off in different places. You have an idea about where things are going. With this, it's just like, he could be anywhere. He could be in the Black Line, he could be part of the Black Line now, he could be teleported to where Zarkon was because of that connection, he could be where Prince Lothor is. Anything could have happened. I just have no idea. It's a confusing plot point for Shiro in that, like, it leaves you nothing to go on with Shiro. Everything about this plot is like, what does the rest of the group now that he's missing? The actual fact that he's missing, there's just nothing to go on. And I think that makes for kind of a poor cliffhanger in that it's just a shocking event with no real reaction to go on for that character. Hagar, I think, continues to be very interesting. The reveal that she is Altean is fascinating. It goes into the villain backstory that I really want to see. She's much more interesting than Zarkon because she seems more loyal to the cause than even Zarkon, and that she's like, no, look, we have to take out the princess to keep control of the galaxy. She's she's so loyal to Zarkon that even if she's super frustrated with him, she won't go against him. So she clearly doesn't want to become leader herself. Otherwise, she would step up at the very end of the season and become leader. But instead, she is calling in Prince Lotor to basically come in as the lead villain. Maybe she'll lead to some extent by herself, but Prince Lotor is being brought in for that reason. So even now, she's not stepping up to fill in that power vacuum that Zarkon's gone. That speaks to her loyalty, but why is she loyal? There's a lot of questions, but she's more interesting than Zarkon himself. What else do I want to talk about? I suppose Paige had a nice moment, nice little bit of development in greening the cube, just learning the natural side of her, what her kind of element is as a paladin, connection with nature, not just technology. But outside of that, she wasn't really utilized all that well. There is the whole idea of like Matt is out there, she has a hint to where he is, he's been captured. That's an interesting plot point that I don't mind being kind of slowly developed. Hunk continues to be completely underutilized, and he's completely written as just a food guy. Everything about him is about the food. I think they've almost forgotten the fact that he's the engineer of the group. So there's that. Final, I suppose, points here are just like, I like the way they did planets this season. When they come to a new planet, it feels like there's a story, there's a history to the planet, to the race of species on that planet. 2 and 4 both represented that quite well. Even the Targier episode kind of represented that quite well. I feel like that sort of world building is being done a bit better. The backstory history world building isn't being done so well. The animation continues to be really good. The humor, I think, has improved this season. Karan, I think, was slightly annoying in season 1, but his humor was super on point throughout this entire season. Space Mall was an excellent episode. And a lot of the episodes, I think, were just very fun. I just feel that there was a lot of... the writing felt a little muddled with a lot of the main plots this season, and that's where it fell down. So I'm going to end the video there. I know I was very negative in this video, but trust me, I really like Voltron. If I didn't, I wouldn't be collecting the comic series that not a lot of fans know about. I wouldn't buy the same comics twice, basically, collected form and single issues, if I didn't like this show. I just want it to be better than it is right now. And I think a lot of people have to accept the fact that this season struggled in some ways, and that it will get better in season 3, but for now, season 2, looking at it as a whole, wasn't amazingly strong. It was an improvement, and it speaks still to the fact that this show is very high quality. I still really like the show, it's fun, entertaining, but it hasn't yet, for me, delivered all that effectively on some of its bigger plots. And I have full expectations that we will get big moments in season 3 or 4 or whatever, whenever they announce what's next. But season 2, I think as a fandom we have to be very fair to it, for the sake of criticizing the show, to help it improve, and say that there was some missed opportunities in this season and it made some mistakes. So yeah, just gonna end the video there. Thanks for watching this video, and bye.